Hey everyone, I'm Nate Madsen. I'm the owner, composer, and sound designer behind Madsen Studios, and I want to do a quick walkthrough through the Heron. This is one of the more popular tracks from the SkateBIRD soundtrack. The game came out September 16th. The soundtrack came out roughly a month before that, and the reception has been outstanding. I've had more streams and purchases than any of my other stuff that I've released ever, so that's saying quite a bit. I am very, very honored and flattered by the great outpouring of support and affection for the soundtrack and for the game. So I wanted to dig into a little bit about what I did, how I made this track. Now, I haven't opened this session since August 2019, and this song in particular started December 2018. So some of this is going to be a little bit of discovery for me as well as for you, because it's been a while. But let's dig in a little bit. If you haven't played SkateBIRD, it is developed by Glassbound Games. I've been working with Megan Fox, the developer and creator behind that, the lead person behind that studio, since, 2010, when NetDevil closed. We met at NetDevil, became friends, and then since then, when NetDevil shut down, we just kept working together on all kinds of things. One of our other more popular releases was Hot Tin Roof, and that did pretty well in Steam. And SkateBIRD is out on Xbox Game Pass, it's on Switch, it's on Steam, Luna, itch.io, so check it out if you haven't. Okay, let's get into the song a little bit. One of the things that's different about SkateBIRD is it's very much the vibe of a DJ, hip-hop, sample-based, loop-based type of production. And for me, being a classically trained musician and also jazz musician, I'm very used to starting with a completely blank page. So this was a bit of a growing thing for me. This was a bit of a change up where I have to now take things that someone else has made and then see if I can make it work for what my ideas are. And also I'm taking sources that are disparate from each other, from here, from there, different creators, different hardware, different software, and I'm trying to see and make it all work within the world that I'm creating of SkateBIRD, at least of SkateBIRD's original music. So that was a little bit of a challenge. I'm going to play the track first, just a little bit here.
The heron eats many fish, and sometimes frogs and snakes or crawfish.
Okay, so if you haven't heard it, you can go. I have it on Bandcamp, I have it on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, all the major storefronts. So search for SkateBIRD, you will find it somewhere. So you can listen to the whole track there, but let's dig into a little bit behind some of the approaches that I'm taking here. The dialogue first. Megan found a whole bunch of public domain documentaries about birds. And so I took out the dialogue, the narration, and I sampled that and put it into this track. You can hear it
The
here.
heron eats many fish, and sometimes.
And that simple sometimes is just me cutting and splicing. I think I may have put a little bit of fade out. Maybe I didn't. Oh, I didn't. Other times I put a little fade out on that, but this time I didn't.
Sometimes.
And you can hear a little bit of that hiss that's from the
Frogs and snakes
recording.
or crawfish.
And I literally just went through and just found spots to place it. And you can see some spots where I decide I'm not going to use this anymore. For example, let's listen to these two things.
The heron.
And so with the music,
the heron. The heron.
so I decided after placing those, this is a little too repetitive. Gives a little more space for the flute to do its thing.
The heron.
Now in this one, I can already see the fades. You can hear the delay still going. Right there. So I used some fades in that one. That was a little more aggressive of a glitch. And you can see I was just splicing those and doing those manually. Later on, so this is 2018, so this is before I got the Logic that had the new nice sampler. Later on, right before launch, I started doing a whole bunch of tracks where I would actually put these into Logic's new sampler, and then I would make my own regions and then just play things in manually into the keyboard instead of trying to move it around in the grid. That sped things up a lot. That was really, really nice. All right, so that's the dialogue, and then I've got birds.
Favorite spot.
Oh, sorry. That's actually, so sometimes I will choose to do effects on certain spots of the voiceover, and other spots will be dry. For example, I think this is just the word fish right here.
The heron eats many fish.
And that has delay, but everything else doesn't. I could just automate it, but I've also found sometimes it's faster just to make a new track, put whatever settings you want on there, and then go with it. So, down here, these...
The Amazing Magpie!
This is other dialogue. This is from another public domain documentary. And then you can see down here, these are definitely bird samples. I think, I changed the panning. It's a real simple trick. I brought these down in volume a little bit, then if you look at the panning, I just went from one side to the other. Pretty simple stuff, from the left to the right. That's a lot of fun type of stuff to do. And also, I'm doing some multipass and some guitar rig on here. You can see I have a lot of plugins. Some of these are bypassed. Basically, what I was doing was I was experimenting with different combinations. And once I found something, I liked it, I kept it on there. For session maintenance and cleanup, I probably should have unloaded these that are not being used, but I just left it. So, but I'm going through and I'm adding some stuff, because if I turn these off, oh, sorry, let me do it. Sounds like that. And then the EQ, just taking off some of the lows. That adds an interesting rhythm to it. And then the multipass. So now it has a almost like a synth little glide or portamento type effect. It's really changing. Instead of just sounding like a bird sample, which it still sounds like a bird, it sounds more like a bird kind of doing this groove fill to what the music is doing. And we really want to, we jokingly call this bird bop, but we want it to be hip hop, R&B, jazz, pop, all these elements fused together, but surrounded around birds, because SkateBIRD is all about, you guessed it, birds. So a little bit in context here. To the right. So I wasn't just plugging in birds, and this sample has other, you noticed before it was 1, 3, and 5, and here it's 1, 4, and 6, and also the EQ slope is different. So if I turn these off and just played that bird sample, it sounds like a regular mockingbird, because that's what it is. But if I turn these back on, that's a little more space. It's not nearly as much of a change as it's going to happen on the JBird, where it's doing the guitar rig and the multipass, and it's giving that type melodic fill. Instead, this just gives it more space. So I want some birds to have that really melodic sense to it, and I want some birds just to give some ambience and just remind the player, hey, this is all about birds. Let's move forward. So this right here, it's obviously a different bird sample. It's a J, but it's just a different sample being used. And it's being used in a rhythmic sense. If I just looked at this spot, it's almost like percussive. It's just a filler. It's a melodic but more percussive filler that's backing up when the flute takes over. So let's get a little bit into the instruments. It's just me playing the keys. I've got some, if you haven't used Movement, it's a really nice plugin by Output. And I use this quite a bit. In later tracks, not in this one, I actually would move this around and it changes how these parameters are impacting the sound. It gives it more evolution. In this track, this is static. It's staying right where it is. So that's just a simple little organ fill. Let's look down here at these two, ARP and Rhodes. Just creating a groove. Very, very simple. Let's look at this clav. You see I use a lot of delays. I use a lot of movement and delays in these tracks. Okay, and then let's get to the drums. These are obviously sampled. So I haven't talked too much about this so far in this video, but one thing we wanted to try and do with SkateBIRD was use a lot of DJ approaches, electronic, hip-hop type things. So I went to Splice, I went to ADSR, I went to Production Hub, a whole bunch of other resources, and purchased a whole bunch of loops. Now, like I said before, loops are something that's a little bit unique because I'm used to starting with a blank page of paper, and now I'm trying to work around someone else's ideas. But what's nice about that is it pushes you into directions you don't necessarily go. Sorry, those are horns. Now, I am a saxophonist. I play alto, tenor, soprano, C melody, but I don't play any trumpets or trombones, really. You would not want to hire me for that. But so this is something where a lot of the tracks in SkateBIRD, some of them I use my actual saxophone recordings and played stuff. One thing that comes to mind, Atlas Gospel. That's me on 2 alto tracks harmonized with each other. That's me all recording in that. I did some on Growing Up Red Tails, and I actually hired a really great trumpet player, John Robert Matz, to do the trumpet parts on that track. But there's been plenty of times where I found something that was really kind of cool, or horn stabs, ensemble. You can hear this is an ensemble. So I just used it. I was like, this is great. I think I pitched it, not pitched it, I timed it, because this is at 94, so I squeezed it to where it would work at this tempo, because you can see the original tempo is 86. Looking at this, simple drum, EQing a little bit. I did experiment with some isotope trash, but I didn't like it for that one. And here's another one. Just hats. Some more EQ action going on. And then finally, I put some delay on this one. I really like the vocal elements in this loop. Combine these. Add in the horn. Okay, let's look at this. Movement's doing its thing. I'm EQing out a little bit of the mids. It's a really cool track, a really cool little stem there. And like I said, it's a little weird for me to just share this with you all because I've tried to be very open from the get-go that I didn't create SkateBIRD 100% from scratch. I hope that's been clear to everyone. I did put my name on it and everything like that. All this was totally legal to use because I purchased all the loops to use and everything like that. I also use Outputs Arcade a lot. Not in this track, this is before I found that, but Splice, Output Arcade, ADSR, Production Hub I think is another one I went to, or maybe I'm misremembering the name of that website, but I just gathered up a whole bunch of stuff. And so it's a little weird to share these because at the beginning, this felt like cheating to me. Like, I'm not writing every single note here. I'm not creating everything organically. But it reminds me of that meme that I saw one time where the meme basically goes, oh, you know, I felt bad that I was using a virtual instrument for something. So then my wife's about to be home. Okay. Anyway, I was saying it feels kind of like cheating, but at the same time, this is something that a lot of people have done before, and this was a new approach for me. And what we wanted to do with SkateBIRD was not do the same thing I had done before. That's one thing I love about working with Megan and working with Glass Bomb Games, is they always push me to do something new, something that's honestly a little bit uncomfortable for me at the beginning, but then I grow into it and it becomes another skill set. And so with this, using loops and everything like that, I had to get over the sense of, am I cheating here? But there's still artistry and creativity to using loops. One of my favorite examples of this is the Darren Korb soundtrack to Bastion, where he has some of those Apple loops that I can find very easily and recognize in my own collection of Apple loops and Logic. But he's using them in creative ways, and he's still writing stuff around it. And it's also, like I said, all legal to do. That's why it's there. And so I had to get around the mental element of that and be like, okay, I'm still creating and then still putting my fingerprint on it, but what's interesting, what's neat, and what's part of the puzzle is making everyone else's fingerprint of these loops and things they created work with mine and make it sound like it's all one universe. Okay, the bass. I found these two bass channels, and these are just presets in Logic, Liverpool and Pictoelectric. And I actually saved them because I was using them so often together. And you can see I have one that's always louder than the other one. This one, if I remember correctly, is more tinny, but it has a better defined attack. And this one is more subby. But together, and then in context of the mix,
Frogs and snakes or crawfish.
you know, I felt like that worked. I like that sound. I actually use those bass patches quite a bit through the whole soundtrack. There are a couple tracks that deviate from that bass, or from those basses, but that's a lot of them. And then this piano is very idiomatic of me. I put piano with reverb on almost everything I do. For better or for worse, I do that. And this is just me playing in some piano parts. And it's intentionally not quantized. Obviously reverb and delay. There you go. Little line. So if you hear it all together from the beginning.
The heron eats many fish, and sometimes frogs and snakes or crawfish.
That
The
blue
heron
jay
fishes in shallow reedy
that
waters
little
on lakes or rivers.
adds so much right there. Because let's listen to it again without that little effect going on. I'll keep the EQ there, but I'll take off these two things. And listen for these two blue jays. That's the...
The heron eats many fish, and sometimes frogs and snakes or crawfish.
What is that? It sounds like a squeeze toy. Yeah, it doesn't work at all. So by adding this in, it just gives it that groove and that edge, that hip element to hip hop.
The heron eats many fish, and sometimes frogs and snakes or crawfish. The heron fishes in shallow reedy waters on lakes or rivers.
Now, you'll hear it. One of these drum loops. I think it might be this one.
You better wait here.
You better wait here. It's a public domain. This is from Splice. This is one of those great lo-fi vinyl type drum patches. It's got a little bit of dirt to it.
You better wait here.
A little bit dirty, and then the mixed in voiceover. I actually did that intentionally on one of the other tracks. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but it's one of the later ones I did, and I actually went through and with the new sampler in Logic, I put some voice just talking in there, and then made it splice and then played randomly, and it's like, and it just has this weird effect. It only does it for like 4 bars, but I really like that effect. And then here's another drum loop. Now this one is really, 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 you can hear it's scooped out. It's this interesting vibe.
Lose you better wait.
It's nuanced. Because if you take this away,
Lose you better wait.
put it back in, it's just there, barely there. You have to really listen for that. Okay, so let's talk about the guitar loop. I don't want this video to be super long, so we're going to look at a couple more things and then be basically done with this kind of deeper dive into the Heron. So the guitar loop, I'm going to play it by itself just for a second. So change chords here. Alright, so if you're a really attuned guitarist, no pun intended, you're hearing it, those chord changes sounds a little bit weird. It's because it's Melodyne. If I turned off Melodyne, if I bypassed it, it's going to do the E minor riff the whole time. Because it's a loop. That's what it does. And it's just strict repetition of it. You can see with the icons, I'm just looping this for 4 bars. But I changed the harmonies to make it work with what I'm doing in the track. I'm going to put it all together. I'm going to give a little bit of lead in.
After fishing in one place for a while, he may fly on to another favorite spot.
Little wind chime there for effect. Flute solo happening.
The Heron. The Heron. The Heron eats many fish.
That little bird sample is back. It changes to a different voice over here. Okay, I want to talk about one more thing here. This little Rhodes, putting some reverb on it and putting some delay gate to where it has this cool vibe, and it doesn't happen for the first 13 bars of this piece. So if I do the lead in and take this out,
He may fly on to another favorite spot.
it works, but it feels a little empty. And having this back in there,
He may fly on to another favorite spot.
there's some pace and some movement. Change the chords.
The Heron. The Heron.
This is just a strict repetition.
The Heron
Change
eats
again.
many fish.
Orange come back in. See here, I changed the rhythm up. I'm splicing some things around.
Billy, the amazing magpie from the plains of North America. He's a daring acrobat,
I do a
a
little solo here.
mathematical and musical
On
genius.
3 different things.
And so, on with the show.
Go on through the MIDI.
On with the show.
Okay, one of my favorite things about this track, I think we will just finish this track. I changed my mind. I took that same bum, 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 ba ba da dum, this little part, and I just isolated that little first line.
On with the show.
And I love the bass, the do, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum,
On with the show.
bum, ba-da, bum.
He's watching for fish. He's watching. The kingfisher too eats fish.
So the
See
synth
how
line
he
builds
is
up.
built.
Now let's talk about this do-ba-do-ba-do-ba. So I'm in E minor. If I show you the MIDI. I'm just playing along. I'm like, I need something else, some kind of riff here. What can I do? And I remember I was standing. Don't know why. I was standing by my keyboard and I played. Oh my! I'm not on the right patch, but you'll see right here. I'm playing. Oh, I've got serious delay, serious latency. But I'm playing the D up to E flat to E. I'm just doing rocking boo bop doo bop boo bop. So let's listen to that by itself. We'll play just these elements. It almost sounds like a 70s like spy thing. Like they're going down the alley and they're going to find the bad guy. But when it's in context, it creates a nice little groove. Now, an arrangement trick really quickly is I like the fact that first off, the first time it appeared in the entire piece is 2 minutes, 5 seconds in. All right, and if you back out a little bit and zoom, you can see we don't have much left of the track to go. So I've saved this little nugget for this spot. And it happens, and then it takes a long break, then it happens again, takes another little break, and then it happens 2 more times, closer into succession of each other, and that's how the track actually ends. So I'll start right here.
But he too is a good fisherman.
And then stop.
A good fisherman. He often perches on a dead
Going
branch
to a
over
new
a
vibe
stream.
here, a different vibe.
He's watching for fish.
Little fill.
If he has no luck at one watch post,
Doesn't do it again.
he will fly to
And
another.
then now,
He's watching for fish. He's watching for fish.
so what you have is you have these couple of different ideas that some of them start at the very beginning. The horns, right from the beginning, bum, can't sing the high, bum, 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 ba-ba-doo-da. That starts right at the beginning. And it comes back here. But it's that mutated version which happened right here. This is about midway through the track. So it does harken back to the beginning, but it's not quite a strict repetition of it. That's a great arrangement tool to use. And then you have this new idea that didn't happen to the very almost end of the piece, and it starts playing around, and they happen together, and they end at the same time. And you have this little piano fill, if I solo this out, and then it happens again. All right, and even with the delay, there's some chromatic notes happening right there, and it actually sounds a little bit messy, but when it all comes together, it works. Bass is still doing that. Boom.
He often
just long
perches
tones.
on a dead branch over a stream. He's watching.
One thing that the bass long tones does, in my opinion, as it gets to the end of the track, is it's reducing the harmonic or rhythmic intensity. Just being boom, just holding out on that E. I think it's an E. Yeah, holding on the E for a while, it just allows the track and the listener to be like, okay, we're starting to slow down. And it's instead of just screeching on the brakes and stopping without any notice, you're gradually coming to a stop. You're letting the listener know we're about to end the piece. And by the way, another nice little thing is I've got this little tail here happening here with the brass.
He often perches on a.
That's a lead into the new section, and it also ends this way. And I have the wind chimes happening. Wind chimes happen several times in this piece. But let's finish this out.
He often perches on a dead branch over a stream. He's watching for fish. If he has no luck at one
Back
watch
to that
post,
rhythmic
he will fly to
DJ.
another.
It was over here.
He's
Back to
watching
that.
for fish. He's watching for fish.
And at the very, very end, just looking at the bird samples, you know, I've got this right here. I've got this rhythmic thing, which happens again right here. But this last little sample is just a simple.
He's watching for. He's watching for fish.
So by timing, he's watching for fish, and that being the downbeat of the last bar. and everything else ending there, it draws a nice little conclusion to the piece.
He often perches on a dead branch over a stream. He's watching for fish.
Remember, this is the voiceover track that has effects on it,
He's watching for fish.
and this one is dry.
He's watching for fish. If he has no luck at one watch post, he will fly to another. He's watching for fish. He's watching for fish.
And that's the track. So that's how it all came together, you know. It's one of those things where it was really a growing process for me to use loops, to use samples, but to try and do them in creative ways, really be making a solid arrangement as best as I can do there, and just having fun. If I'm grooving, bobbing my head to it, I've shared with my wife, I'll have my kids listen to it. If they're bobbing their heads and they're like doing this whole, doing the white man over by, whatever you want to call it, this, if they're having a good time with it and I'm having a good time, then I would send it off to Megan. If she liked it and she had a good time with it, then it's like, all right, cool, let's keep this going. And then we did that with every track. And I just try to experiment with using loops, using samples, using dialogue, and then putting my own little touches on it. You know, one thing that's interesting is this opening idea, for example. Some of the ideas come back, the brass or that rhythmic bird cadence we talked about, and some of it doesn't come back. This, it never came back. After it finishes this idea, right about bar 20, at bar 22, 21, it doesn't come back. It does this little thing here. That's nothing fancy, but it's adding a layer and a texture while other stuff is really being more interesting. And then here it has this little growing boo-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba-da-ba-doo-ba-ba-doo. And of course, at the very, very end, it's demoing the ba-ba-da-ba-doo-bop. So, being very, very long-winded, I'm going to edit this way down. But the idea here is, in your tracks, I think you'll get a lot more, what do you call it? A lot more, you're going to get a lot more mileage if you're very picky and economical with what you use and when and how you use it. Have things that come back for continuity, but have other things that only happen once for originality and just for a spark and flavor in your track. I hope that's helpful. I didn't go into any of the production side of things really. I did a little bit of that stuff, but not a lot. I bus out to families here. You can see that, and then I put everything through a LA2A emulation and do the ad limiter. And this time I was actually using SonarWorks, which I haven't used that in a while, but it's pretty useful. Okay. I've ribbled on for a very, very long time. Way longer than I meant to, but I hope that was useful. Hope that was fun. If you like these, I'll do other deep dives into other tracks in the SkateBIRD because it was by far one of the most fun, unique, and different soundtracks I've done in my career. And I cannot overstate how pleased and overwhelmed I am by the positive response and support that it's been getting. So check out SkateBIRD if you haven't. And if you like what I'm doing, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the little bell to be notified about future videos I do. Check out my other work, and I'll talk to you later.